it's Marley from the Energy Boutique with your energy and ascension forecast for Sunday, September 11th to Saturday, September 17th. So let's recap last week before we dive into this week. First of all, we had the first quarter moon in Sagittarius on the 3rd, which definitely shook things up. I'm going to talk about that here in a second, but it definitely showed us a greater, grander picture on the direction, or should I say redirection, that many of us will have to take in moving forward. Followed by Venus moving out of Leo on the 4th, technically moved into Virgo on the 5th, but those last degrees of Venus being in the heart and soul of the zodiac on the 4th were absolutely heart-wrenching, definitely triggering and activating to that heart chakra. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my personal experiences with that as well. But of course, Venus moved into Virgo on the 5th, definitely grounding us out, making us a little bit more focused on health and wellness and what we have to do to repair ourselves, our self-worth, our self-value, our self-confidence. Yes, relationships as well. That's more of a Mercury retrograde in Libra theme, which we'll talk about here in a second. But basically, Venus moving into Virgo was setting us up to heal the physical body, the physical circumstances in the physical form. This Virgo energy, as you may know, being in Virgo season, is all about zooming in on the finer details of our lives, on what it is that isn't working so well, identifying the problems and what is broken so that we can attempt to resolve said issues, to fix said issues, to heal said issues, and return us back to a state of wholeness. Then Mercury retrograde. If you are joining me here on September 9th in the live chat, first of all, thank you for being here, but also know that Mercury is about to retrograde. Yes, this is Mercury retrograde day, which means that this is setting us up to heal the mind and relationships, to see justice where it has not been served be served. So again, there's a topic and a theme here. Venus and Virgo setting us up to heal the physical body, the physical circumstances here in the physical realm. Mercury retrograde in Libra, set to fix our mental plane, our conversations, our heart space revolving around relationships and injustices. And of course, I will throw this in here, 9/9 portal. We'll talk about that in a second. And the big setup is with this full moon in Pisces taking place at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time here tomorrow on Saturday, September 10th. That is preparing to heal us karmically on a soul level in our emotions and unconscious self. So we get Venus in Virgo, body, we get Mercury retrograde in Libra, mind, and we get full moon in Pisces, heart and soul. So this has been a very painful past week for me, for many people in the world. There was a huge loss, not only in our community, but stretched province, country, and worldwide. I don't know if many of you are familiar with Pat Stay. He is a famous battle rapper. He is an entertainer, but most of all, he is an amazing friend and father and partner, and gave back to his community. And we here in Nova Scotia, Dartmouth especially, suffered a huge blow. We lost him last, I'm going to say Saturday night, but technically it was early Sunday morning. And it has just been a very heavy, heart-filled week. I personally have been, struggling with questions, with grief. The way he was taken out of this world, being such a light, is definitely putting me in a position where I'm questioning my beliefs again. And I'm questioning, soul contracts and, death dates, and trying to make sense of it all, because at this point in time in the spiritual war that we're currently in, it bewilders me how, the ugliness can be peaking at such a high level and take out one of the, greatest earth angels, so real, so down to earth, touched everybody in a completely different way, and has left a huge heart a hole in the heart of our community here, of our province, of our country. And what I am noticing now is his worldwide reach. And what's interesting is that even though I've been experiencing my own personal grief, my own questions of mortality, and more importantly, immortality, as far as my knowledge and understanding of the universe and cosmos goes, taking a look at how the Schumann Resonance, which measures the electromagnetic frequencies coming in from the cosmos, especially with the solar flares and CMEs popping off the sun, that of course are activating the light codes within us that have been genetically modified and I'm going to say disconnected by the, let's call it the intelligent, the quote unquote intelligent race that has created this little experiment of Earth that we're on. The Schumann Resonance had showed such interesting patterns in it that I have never seen, and I know some people that study the Schumann Resonance more deeply than I have, that they've never seen before. And as I speak right now, we're still in a, I believe, pushing 72 hours, if not more, blackout on that Schumann Resonance. And I've been sitting and thinking a lot this past week about what exactly happened. And I do believe that there was a glitch in the matrix. I do believe that we made a huge shift, a timeline jump. And even though I can't at this point make sense or try to understand the kind of timeline that we're living on without the kinds of people such as Pat Stay in this world shining a bright light, I can't really make sense of that yet. What I do know is that we are on very interesting times of switching up this 3D construct to new Earth. And I want to talk about this further, but I needed to kind of build up and wrap up what took place last week to bring us to this present moment where, you know, if you live under a rock, maybe you didn't hear, but the Queen has passed away as well. I have a huge rant about that I'm going to dive into. But just understand that the Queen is a release of dark force energies. And I guess it wasn't until I heard that announcement, and again, I don't believe that she died just now. I do believe she's been passed for quite some time, and this is just the narrative, that the title, the information that gets dropped now, which we'll talk about here in a second. But that was the only thing that actually made sense to me on why we had to lose a light such as Pat. And again, when you understand the spiritual war that we're in, light versus dark, to know that such a dark force entity was finally, quote unquote, released under the guise of the Queen, kind of made me understand that the battlefield is being leveled out and evened out. And especially as we make our way towards the equinox, which of course ushers in new timelines, new soul contracts, and resets the quote unquote spiritual battlefield for even playing ground, if you will. And that is the only thing that is making sense to me on how to process this particular loss at this time. What I will also say is, you know, if you don't know who Pat Stay is, that's fine. If you're not connected to his passing or not connected emotionally to the Queen's passing, what I will say is take a good look around at your own life. There are a huge group of souls choosing to leave the earth at this time. We talked about this again back in about February-ish. The reason why I want to make that connection is because we're about to have the full moon in Pisces, and we have to go back to Pisces season, which we've seen huge amounts of people choose to leave this earth. And again, it is because light workers that were alive and well here fighting in this earthly realm were needed. We're called home to continue to fight the battle on the other side. And we see the good being kind of balanced out with the bad and vice versa. And it doesn't make it right, and it doesn't make it feel good, and it doesn't make it any easier to process or to deal with or to make peace with or to understand. But this is definitely, I'm going to say this past week has definitely been a equaling out, if you will, of the spiritual forces on both the light side and the dark side. And in your own personal life, I'm sure you're hearing more and more of just, everyday people that are losing their battle with this life experience and choosing to return home. And we do see this in cycles, in seasons where, like I said, we're about to wrap up, close a chapter, especially karmically with this Piscean moon, that sets us up and prepares us for brand new life lessons, brand new contracts, brand new timelines that get ushered in under the equinox, which is on the 22nd. It's only, literally a week and some days away. And we are definitely experiencing the fallout of this last chapter coming to an end. And of course, we are seeing the awkward and painful adjustments that are needed to prepare us for this new season and new cycle that will be ushered in with the equinox. So what do we got going on this week? Well, it's going to be a quote unquote quiet week. You know what happens when I say it's going to be a quiet week. Usually we have huge energy blasts, huge Schumann Resonance evidence of things shifting in the cosmos. And of course, whatever's happening up in the higher realms is being mirrored back down here on Earth, because as above, so below. But technically speaking, astrologically speaking, all we're building to this week is the last quarter moon in Gemini that will be on September 17th. And that gives us a full week of trying to process, release, purge, end, close doors on, finish up chapters, tie up loose ends on some of the karmic fallout that many of us are experiencing, that will be highly triggering and activated under the full moon in Pisces, although it's definitely being felt now. And that last quarter moon in Gemini is going to be probably feeling like another full moon, if you will. We have to consider the fact that Gemini energy is Mercurial ruled, and Mercury is essentially asleep and drugged at the wheel right now. We're in Virgo season, which also shares Mercury as its ruler, which means that this last quarter moon, which is always a pivotal reflection point, a cumulative point of the information, the details, and the circumstances that got illuminated and changed up and switched up under the full moon, that comes to an end. And in this Gemini energy, it's definitely a mental energy where we see different perspectives, where we have a different understanding, where the gaps of the extreme polarized thoughts, ideas, directions, paths that we've been exploring will come to a happy middle ground, where we lean into one perspective, one understanding, one idea, one direction over the other. And again, this is the week where we are going to sort things out in preparation for that equinox energy to enter in and kind of rebalance the scale, so to speak, to level the playing field, so to speak, and for us to get a clean slate, a fresh start, moving forward in a brand new season and a brand new cycle. So with that being said, I have a lot to talk about this week. First, I just want to do a little bit of homework and say thank you. Say thank you to those of you here in the chat, those who aren't here in the chat, but are also, liking and sharing and commenting on these posts and helping to spread this information far and wide so that, we can try to stay in alignment with the energy and beat them at their own game, if you will. I also want to thank those of you who decided to sign up for a YouTube subscription, but I am going to caution you. I don't want you to sign up to YouTube subscriptions. This has been a experimental phase, and those of you who have signed up have already let me know that you're not receiving notifications, and especially as a paid membership, this is absolutely disgusting to me. If you've been listening to me for any amount of time, you know that I've struggled with wanting to pull the whole membership thing anyways, because I cannot stand making YouTube any richer than they already are. So I do want to apologize for those YouTube subscribers that are paying for a membership. And I will say I will be terminating the membership ability, the tiers. There will not be a paid membership site on my YouTube. I'm absolutely disgusted and in a lot of hate with them. The experiment didn't go so well. So for those of you that have paid and are a paid subscriber to this YouTube, I am very grateful that you had the patience to sit this out with me. But I also am very sorry to say that come October, the memberships and with that, the zodiac forecasts will not be available on the membership site of YouTube. So with that being said, Patreon is going a little bit better. If you're interested in getting notifications, free notifications that everybody should be getting anyways. Get that Patreon app and you'll get all of the notifications for all my free content. There are 2 different paid level memberships over there that give you a little bit more content, more information, some discount codes to the zodiac forecasts, of course. And I'm going to continue with the Patreon site a little bit longer until they start banning me or censoring me or, stop sending the notifications to the paid subscribers. The experiment is going a little bit better over on Patreon. So if you are interested in signing up to a membership, I would suggest that you move on over to Patreon because this YouTube membership is just garbage. It's just junk. The other thing that I wanted to mention is the moon guide. So as you know, full moon in Pisces, I definitely dove into some deep shadow work for this moon guide because, again, this is the full moon in Pisces. This is the ending of the zodiac cycle before we jump into a brand new full moon cycle with the Aries energy coming at us next month. And this is a karmically scripted moon event in order for us to cut the cords with some old memories, some old emotions, some old contracts. And if you have not dabbled in the moon guides as of yet, this would be a great time to do so. And if you have, I want to thank you so much for the love and support and just kind of recommend that you definitely take the time to work on yourself and to dive into this moon guide and really get down to the nitty-gritty of your unconscious self and cleanse that energy out of your body and prepare for this next cycle that we are about to move into. Okay, so I am going to warn you, I am going on a rant and they do feed into each other, and I'm highly motivated and passionate about the things that I'm about to talk about here. And I do not mean to come off as a negative Nancy at all. However, there are some topics and themes that have a little bit of a heavier weight to them that I need to get off my chest, that I think other people need to hear me talk about as well. So we're going to dive into it. So I talked a little bit about my own personal loss and, the loss of my community, the loss of Pat Stay. If you don't know who he is, I would definitely recommend that you take some time and just kind of, familiarize yourself with the light that he had to offer the world. And as you know, this is not my first loss this year. I think I'm up to 5 losses, huge losses that have just broken me down in so many different ways this year. I know I'm not alone in that. We've all been taking a hard hit because, like I said earlier, a lot of souls have decided to return to source and fight the war in the ethereal realms. And of course, that leaves a huge void, a huge hurt on the hearts of many here in this earthly realm. Now, not to get too into my personal life here, but if you have been listening to me at any amount of time, you would know that my year, the loss actually started last year with my aunt, got carried over to me losing my dog at the beginning of the year, followed by one of my very, very close friends just 2 days later. And then I had a huge loss of a friend of mine who actually got lost at sea. And that takes us back to Pisces season. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because we have the full moon in Pisces, which means that we are essentially letting go, releasing, ending, closing chapters that many of these topics and themes got rooted in back in Pisces season. So what's interesting for me to make the connection is that the friend that I lost at sea back in March in Pisces season was actually the friend that introduced me to Pat, who we just lost this past weekend. And what's even more interesting to me about that is that Pat's birthday is the same day that I had my near-death experience and that I lost my babies. And what's even more coincidental than that is that I was celebrating my baby, what would have been my baby's birthdays, when Pat got taken away from us over this past weekend. Now, to bring things even more full circle, my friend that I lost at sea back in March in Pisces season, coincidentally enough, Pisces season, water energies, right? Literally being swallowed up by the ocean. It was very creepy and very eerie for me to be talking about the Piscean energy around that time of that particular loss. He's actually being memorialized along with all the other members that have been lost at sea here in Nova Scotia and in Canada. And he's being memorialized on September 11th. And I want to talk about this for a second because I'm going somewheres with this, okay? This isn't just a personal sob story here. He's being memorialized on September 11th. And what's even more interesting about that connection is that Pat Stay's memorial and funeral is on September 11th, and that the celebration of his life is expected to be so big that there is no structure here in Nova Scotia that could house all of the people that have already stated that they are showing up for this celebration. And therefore, the community of Dartmouth, that's Pat's hometown, has decided to get all restaurants and bars on board, and they are holding, I guess, what we would call the funeral procession or reception or whatever you call it after his funeral on Sunday. The whole town is being shut down to celebrate his life, and there's going to be a big party take place at all of those restaurants and bars in his memory. Now, this is where I'm bringing it full circle here. September 11th is a day that is emblazed in many people's lives for many reasons, but more specifically, that is the 9/9 terror attacks. Now, I just want to be very clear that those particular attacks were a inside job constructed by the governments in order to create fear, to strategize an opportunity to have the people of the world back them in going into a fabricated war to invade particular places over in the Middle East under the guise of terrorism, when realistically it was to protect the poppy fields that, of course, they pull the opium from, that, of course, our big drug pharmaceutical companies have made a killing off of, and no pun intended there, made a killing off of. The opioid crisis has been the biggest crisis that we have seen, I'm going to say, in the Earth's history, that have been fabricated in order to make the rich get rich off of people's pain, literally. September 11th, it was divinely constructed on that day to have these terrorist attacks because it is a quote-unquote satanic holiday that is an energy harvesting day, that when you create a situation, whether it is organic or man-made, that invokes fear and pain and terror in the collective, that energy gets harvested by the evil force energies that feed off of our pain and off of our trauma. Now, why I want to talk about this is because many people, and I did rant very on a small scale about this in the energy forecast that I put on a daily, people talk about portals a little bit too much. in this new age and spiritual community. And, we're talking about, I'm coming at you live on 9/9. And a lot of people have been hyping up this 9/9 portal. And what I will say, again, because I said it in a forecast just a couple of days ago, is that I do not buy into all of these quote unquote portals. I think that the new age and spiritual community are struggling to make a buck. I think that they use a lot of fluff, a lot of hype for their own entertainment to get the collective hanging off their every word. And this is why I am constantly preaching to know yourself, to have your own strength within yourself, your own intuition to rely upon so that you can discern the truth from an illusion. Now, here's the thing. As one of my beautiful community members had asked in reference to this portal thing that I was talking about in one of my videos, they had mentioned, well, how does this make sense when September is technically the 7th month? Because if you're not aware, the calendar that we are under is a fake calendar that, technically speaking, Aries season at the spring equinox is the very first day of the calendar, which would make September the 7th month instead of the 9th. And my response to that, and I'd like to go into a little bit of depth here because I think it would help a lot of people, is the fact that what the collective focuses on is what has power and what is true. Now, keep in mind, your own individual truth makes it real for you. But this is how collective energy happens, is when we all believe in the same thing. And right now, there are more people in the world that believe that September is the 9th month compared to those that are awakened to the truth and know that it is the 7th month, which means that the 9 energy is all powerful right now because more people believe in that it is the 9th month than it is the 7th month. That being said, if we were to focus on it being the 7th month, what we know about the 7th month is that the 7th month offers us a opportunity to balance the scales. And what we know to be true in September is that that is when the fall equinox happens, which is a return to balance the scales, to make the energies even. So what we know about the number 9 is that it is the harvest season. It is the harvest energy. It is a completion point. It is endings. It is closure. What I will say to you is that those dark forces that have created this false calendar, this false matrix, this pain matrix, they know the real portals. They know the real energetic days. They know these days because they have divinely scripted events in order to trigger and activate the collective in the negative vibrations of fear, of pain, of trauma around those days so that they can harvest the energy because they feed off of low vibrational frequencies. They feed off of the lower emotions that human beings are able to feel. That's why we're constantly talking about raising your vibrations, raising your frequencies so that we don't go down into those lower vibrations of frequencies that the dark force agenda feeds off of. They cannot sustain their lives without the lower force energies of us feeling those energies on the earth. They cannot live without that food, if you will. Now, that being said, if we are talking that the 9/9 portal is actually true, is actually active here today, where Mercury is going retrograde, rebalancing the scales in our relationships, ourselves in relation to the rest of the world. Libran energy is also about giving fairness, giving justice back to the world. And, taking a good look at the Queen, first of all, I'm in disbelief of how many people are actually idolizing her and actually sad and actually trying to commemorate her death in all of these positive ways. Because as far as I'm concerned, because of my truth, because of my ability to read people's energies and to have a deeper understanding by looking into people's eyes, this woman, and I use the term loosely, woman, she was nothing to praise. And at 96, I don't care if you're the Queen or if you're my grandmother who just passed away last year around the same age, your time is up, okay? You lived a very full life, and in her case, a very full life of crimes against humanity. I do not understand how people can turn a blind eye to what the monarch has done to the world. If you're not familiar with their indecencies with the Indigenous population, especially here in Canada with all the residential schools that have unearthed these unmarked graves of all these children that have just been tossed away like garbage, she had a hand in that. If you do not realize that she is the biggest drug dealer, the biggest person trafficker, not even children, but person trafficker in the world, then I don't know what to tell you. It really shocks me that people are still under the delusion of the matrix when we've come so far. If you haven't realized by now that most of the people in power are evil doers. Okay, if you haven't realized by now that most of the evil doers are basically pushing this new world agenda when we're trying to create new earth, I don't know what else to say. I'm at a disbelief. Now, again, I mentioned at the beginning of this forecast that I do not believe that the Queen just died. I actually believe that the Queen has been dead for some time, for a couple of years. I don't know how long you've been listening to me, but I've been putting out podcasts for many, many years. I did one in 2017, another one in 2018, another one in 2019, talking about the changes that we were going to see when we came into 2020, as we entered into the realm where the old earth was ending and the new earth was beginning, about the monarch and the great grander global structures and systems and scales that have created this imprisonment of our souls, how they were going to be crumbling, they were going to be falling. I truly believe that the Queen has had a body double, an actor, if you will, take her place and take up space for the last couple of years to play her part until the narrative was timely enough in order to create a couple of things. Now, here's where I'm going to kind of throw a couple of things at you. First of all, the news was released of her death on this 9/9 portal. What does this do? Well, for the mass of sleepers, you have a lot of upset people, a lot of people in mourning, a lot of people with broken hearts, a lot of people in a stage of grief over her loss, okay? So what does this do? Well, it feeds the evildoers, because now you have the collective, and there is, again, the collective. What they focus on is the narrative, is the truth, regardless of whether we awakened ones know a different truth. We still don't have the power in numbers in order to override that narrative. We are gaining strength. We are winning this war very slowly but surely. But as it stands right now, the majority of the collective believe that the Queen was good, believe that the Queen just died, and because of that, have a lot of pain, a lot of heartache, a lot of lower vibrations and frequencies that they are spewing out into the collective right now that the dark force agenda are feeding off of. Bummer, right? That's why you have to be mindful of what it is that you're actually allowing your attention to be focused on, because what you focus on becomes real. It is your truth, individually and collectively. So some would say, okay, so are you talking about the fact that, and let me just give you two, like, I try to walk the middle path, okay? I'm a realist, but I also have had some supernatural situations happen to me and some knowledge that, will never make sense on this earth plane, which means I had to open my mind up a little bit. But even with that experience, I try to walk the middle path with everything. So you have all of these people on this side that think that the Queen was the greatest person alive and that she did such, good things for the world and blah, 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 blah. You also have a group of people on the opposite side of the spectrum that thinks that she is a baby-eaten reptile, part of the satanic agenda, okay? Somewheres between those 2 points of extreme is the truth. And what I will say to you is that the truth is probably scarier than those two extremes put together. And that the truth of the matter is that there is a lot of delusion still left in the collective field that is creating a narrative that is still false in a lot of the angles, a lot of the perspectives in which we look at it. Now, for the everyday person, let's say, for instance, and again, I'm just going to use my own personal experience here, the light that got taken out of this world by Pat Stay's demise here this week in my mind, will not make sense. I do not want to live in a timeline where the lights of the world are being taken out. This matrix shit is just too much for me some days, and really questions why I even continue to preach positivity and to keep your head up in this warrior spirit when all I want to do is curl up in a ball and just wait until the world ends. I know that that's just a funk that I will dig myself out of, but it's hard to have any kind of different perspective when your heart hurts. That being said, like I had mentioned earlier, it wasn't until they announced the Queen's demise that it kind of made sense to me how a light like Pat could be taken out of the world, and how, darkness no longer reigns in the monarch. That to me was an attempt for the higher up forces to even the playing field here on this earth plane. And as we know, the light is already won. It just takes a lot longer for it to manifest here on this earth plane and to see the evidence of that. But I do believe that the light is won. It's just really hard for me to process, again, when I have personal wounds coming up and just making me realize how ugly this earth plane actually is. So individually, what I want to talk about is that around these very importantly, energetically potent days, many of us, especially awakened light workers, feel depressed to the point where many of us consider leaving this earth altogether. I have a friend of a friend who took their own life this week. And you know what? I'm sure I'm not the only one looking around saying, what the hell is going on? Why is everybody choosing to leave? My spiritual understanding tells me that I know why people are choosing to leave, but it's sometimes when you get connected to this earth plane and you're trying to have this earthly experience, because that's what we're here to do, it just makes you question. Now, there are people that are losing their battles with their health, that are choosing to exit out of the earth realm at this time in order to return to source. But what I will say is that these portal days are super, super hard on us awakened light workers, because it makes it hard to disconnect from the overall unconscious collective energies, which right now we're going through a heavy purge, a heavy release. This is what the full moon in Pisces is all about, is karmically detaching us from the weight, from the baggage of the old contracts. And sometimes as a light worker, this is why it's so important to have a spiritual practice and to have good spiritual hygiene, is because we don't know whether the way that we are feeling is actually because that's the way that we feel, or if we're picking up on the collective energy. And I know that the collective energy right now is in a state of mourning, whether it is over a fabricated storyline such as the Queen, or whether it's over real storylines such as losing personal people in your realm. It does bring us light workers to our knees. But just remember, and this is what I've been having to remember throughout this week that has been very emotionally challenging for me, is that a light worker's job is to alchemize the darkness into light. A light worker's job is to alchemize the pain into a source of power. And yes, it's exhausting. And yes, it's not fair. And yes, we will all probably want to beat up our higher selves at one point for choosing this soul contract and for choosing to come back on the earth plane at such a time as this, when things are so heavy. And I know many light workers are questioning, like, what the hell was I thinking coming back here to do this job? It's so hard, right? Like, we forget the weight of what emotions can create in our physical bodies when we are at home in source in a state of high vibrations and frequencies of unconditional love. But again, that's why we choose to come to this earth school and this earth plane, is because there is dualistic and polarized factors and situations here which allow us to feel all the extremes of emotions, because without all of those experiences, we are not reaching our soul's fullest potential. And again, our mission here is to be a fragment of God, of creator, of energy, of source, fragmented energy coming down here for an individualized experience, so that we can have the experience that we're here having and return that to source with that information that, of course, contributes to the greater, grander good. So what I will say is that I've had a lot of people that have been very down in the dumps, that have been to their breaking point, that are tired, that don't want to continue to fight this fight. And I get it. I get it. I get you. I feel you. I love you, but we have to push through this. We will feel differently when the equinox comes. It's always like this, no matter what the season, what the cycle. Every single time we face an ending and we're awaiting a beginning, us light workers really feel down in the dumps. We feel exhausted. We feel the weight of the world. We feel the weight of the collective. We don't know what to do. We don't know how this is ever going to pass. But trust me, and I'm trying to trust the process and trust myself in this as I'm dealing with my own emotional weight, this too shall pass. So what I will say is that this full moon is going to be very heavy, and it's heavy for a reason. But again, may I remind you that we have to feel the weight of our heaviness in order to appreciate when that weight has been lifted. And I feel that whether, and let me just say this, whether the queen was good or bad, whether she died yesterday or not, the narrative dictates what the truth is. And right now, the collective believes that the queen was good and that she died yesterday, which means that that is the current timeline that us awakened ones have to go with and fight against and alchemize until the truth can be revealed. Now, that being said, we have to understand that there is an opportunity here, both good and bad, for the world to take a major shift. It is a big deal to see the queen die. It is a even bigger deal to see the quote unquote king. And I say quote unquote because I really do not believe that these guys even come from a royalty bloodline. And I think that that will be exposed in good time. I can't believe that we're going to call a known pedophile a king. I cannot believe that we are going to put this WEF puppet into a position of power to be said king. As a Canadian, I am technically ruled over by this, royal family. And to know that basically this has a ripple effect around the world, it's going to be very interesting how we see this play out. So funny thing, I know I'm jumping all over the place here, but forgive me. Funny thing I seen online not too long ago is somebody that said, have hope. Both Charles and William have 11 life path, which means that they are healers. And I had to laugh because, again, the spiritual new age woo-woo people, the love and lighters, are just getting on my freaking nerves with their bullshit. I cannot believe that people think that just because you have 11 life path, that means that you're a healer. What the 11 means is it's a master number, a master creator, a master manifester, a master builder. And what that means is that the energy of that person has the ability to build, to manifest, to create something beautiful or something that looks like hell. And what I will say to you is that I really do have a little bit of hope that Charles himself has been taken out and replaced with I'm going to say an actor that is acting as a sleeper in order to make some dramatic changes in the world. I feel like the timeline and the consciousness is going to dictate how that unfolds, so we shall see. But it's just another validation for me that, you know what, people are effing crazy. This love and light spiritual new age community has deluded people into thinking things that aren't even true. And that's why, again, I will say to you, please know thyself. Have a relationship with yourself, with the universe, with the God within you, so that you can discern the truth from the lies. I need you to understand that your ability to look at people's eyes and understand what side they play on and whether they're real or not, you have that power. This full moon in Pisces is also going to be activating new psychic abilities within each and every single one of us, intensifying our intuition, intensifying the ability to see through this physical world bullshit and actually discern what the spiritual energy truth is all about. And it just bewilders me that we are living through such historic times. Like, if you don't understand that, like, this has never happened to the world, right? And I don't mean just like the queen dying. I mean like new earth, right? Like this has not happened. We have not been this far in the fight. We have not been on the battlefield of light and dark. This is a brand new narrative for humanity. And seeing as we are the third and final experiment here on this earth plane, we got to get this one right, people. So one would say, okay, so what are we supposed to do with it? Well, that's a good question. I've been trying to rack my brain around what the point of all of this is and what we're supposed to do with it. And all I can continue to say and come up with is that we have a responsibility to our own soul contract, our own soul self, the soul contract of the soul family that we came here to operate within, and the collective soul contract of humanity to continue to get up every single day, to be a human, to sit in the funk, to sit in those lower vibrations and frequencies, and then to do what we can to turn that pain into power, to turn that hate into love, to turn that darkness into light. How do we do that? We do that by getting real. We do that by not aligning with the love and lighters and living in that rainbow and butterfly bullshit. We do that by being real with our own selves, by getting real with what's going on within us, by focusing our minds on the kind of reality that we want to be true. Because when we all focus, as we know, if all of the sleepers are able to focus on a false narrative and make that true, whether it be in our calendar or with the queen, then us awakened people have the ability to focus our consciousness, our attention, our awareness on the reality that we want to see actually be real and know that it will manifest when we have power in numbers. And that's what us activated light workers have been doing, is holding down the grid, anchoring in the light, being that light among 1,000 unawakened people just to be able to see New Earth's foundation actually form. Now, is it going to feel good? No. Is it going to be fair? No. Did we sign up for this? Unfortunately, our dumb ass higher selves, yes, we did. Now, that is something that we can take up in our debriefing when we get on the other side. That is something that we can, try to make peace with while we're here, because the soul contract that we're here to fulfill is still very much alive and well. And you know what? We just have to make the best of it. So for those of you that have been having a hard time and reaching your breaking point and questioning, how we're going to get through this and what we're going to do and, why continue to fight and what is actually going to come out of it, I feel you. I love you. I give you the biggest squeeze that I possibly can. Just know that you are not alone. Know that you're not the only one experiencing it. And just understand that these portal days, they are, I'm going to say, open streamlines of energy, and how we choose to pour that energy out into the cosmos is deciding what reality we are feeding into. The dark force agenda of pain and suffering of this 3D matrix, or the love and light, and I know I shouldn't even say that, but the love and the light that is possible with New Earth, where unity is going to show us where we're able to come together and override this dark force narrative for once and for all. So I know that rant was a little bit all over the place. I'm not even going to apologize for it, because my mind is not working very well, in a state of grief, in a state of, I'm going to say, depression. Right now, I'm trying it very hard to navigate myself through my own life, let alone, come and present it in such a way that doesn't come across as negative Nancy, or doom and gloom. But you know what? I always try to keep it 100%. And this is where my 100% is at. So I do feel like we are going to be feeling better, once the equinox hits and we kind of adjust to that energy. But from now and then, I'm going to be real with you. It's probably going to be a struggle. It's probably going to feel like we are getting tired of trying to keep our head above water and to process all of these emotions and all of these thoughts. And just keep in mind that all of this energy, all of these emotions that are coming up, technically aren't even ours. It's coming from the collective. And even more than that, it's not even coming from this lifetime. It's coming from previous lifetimes. And this is why we're here as light workers at the time that we're here right now in the evolution of Earth, is because we're trying to break free from this karmic construct that has us imprisoned on this earth plane. And, that's why these light workers are here trying to clean up the karma of the past and to be the link in the chain that, the generational trauma stops with us, because we're tired of contributing to this karmic hellhole that, we've been imprisoned in. So we are attempting to set ourselves free, but let me tell you, it is not an easy ride. And just keep in mind that the next 10 years of this earth plane is going to be a absolute shit show. Mostly because, like I continue to say, we are preparing for the Great Revolution, the Great Rebellion that is coming in 2024 to 2026. That's when the beginning of it kicks off. And the changes that we will be seeing on this earth plane due to the rebellion and revolution, they are still yet to be determined. And, I am someone who is always kind of seeing premonitions of the future that I tend to keep to myself. But let me just tell you that lately, you can only gain so much vision of the future. They're only allowing us to see so far ahead, because I feel like things are changing so rapidly in the ethereal realms that we don't even know what the future holds. And that's been a change, because we've been able to see very far into the future for a long time until we actually got this far in the battle, in this, collective humanity struggle, if you will. And I feel like every single time I get downloaded with a new vision, a new, I guess, clearer picture of what the future looks like, it's ever changing because of the level of consciousness that the collective is able to reach. That's why it's important for us light workers that are really struggling or are having a hard time, why we got to continue to fight the good fight. We are making a difference, even though it doesn't seem like it right now. And you know what? Honestly, the future literally depends on us. So we got to constantly keep transforming the darkness into light and the pain into power, and to focus our mental energy on the kind of earth that we want to be living on, so that that becomes the truest narrative for everyone to be focused on and to get to manifesting. So guys, now let's jump into the Ascension symptoms. Probably not going to spend so much time on them this week. I feel like as of late, my rants get more and more lengthy, and the time that I spend on the physical Ascension symptoms get less and less. And a lot of the reasons for that is because the Ascension symptoms are the same old, same old. They're repetitious at this point. And due to the astrology and due to the time and the season and the cycle that they're in, yeah, they can vary a little bit, but I almost feel like it's monotonous, like I'm a broken record every single week talking about the same old things. But nonetheless, that's what these forecasts started out as, and that's what I will continue to make them be. So what I do want to say is that our mental planes, our crown chakras, our head space is going to be in an absolute state of chaos, mostly because Mercury is retrograde, mostly because there are huge amounts of information, time shift, timeline, soul contracts needing to be wrapped up, reprocessed, integrated, acknowledged in order for us to move on, which again is coming with the equinox. So a lot of head pressure, a lot of confusion. And because of the instability going on in our egoic mental plane, it has a huge repercussion and consequence on our heart chakras. And Lord Jesus knows, just when you think your heart chakra can't be activated any more than it already is, something else happens just to make you a little bit more raw, a little bit more vulnerable. Now, with the head and the crown energy, we are going to continue to experience sinus issues. The ear downloads that we've been getting have kind of turned from a ringing into like a piercing, stabbing pain. I don't know if y'all know what I mean about that, but normally speaking, you get that clicking or that ringing in one of your ears when a download is being activated, coming in through your crown. Lately, for me, it's been like a stabbing pain, like a piercing behind the eyes, can't see anything, can't hear anything, world coming to a dark, fuzzy ball before it gets lights again type of experience. Is very painful, very debilitating, especially when you're doing something like driving. Be very super careful, especially seeing as now Mercury is retrograde. Accidents are on an all-time high. Side note, I have to laugh at the people that don't believe in Mercury retrogrades. This morning in my local area, there was a 6-car pileup. A 6-car pileup at like 8 o'clock in the morning. My goodness, shut down a whole highway. Everybody's in just a frenzy. And me with my sick sense of humor, I laugh because I'm like, Mercury retrograde for you. That'll make a believer out of you if you weren't already. Anyways, be super, super hyper careful and vigilant about accidents, especially around these portal energy days, whether you believe in them or not, whether you want to celebrate them or not. That's up to you, but just recognize that chaos ensues right now. We have 6 planets in a retrograde. We have Mercury being the newest, freshest retrograde. We have Mars, the god of war, in Gemini energy that Mercury rules over, by the way, in its pre-shadow period, which is bringing up a lot of anger, a lot of emotions that need to be released. Again, full moon in Pisces. Download the moon guide, listen to the astro forecast so that you can get very well acclimatized to the shift that is going to be taking place over the next week to 2 weeks. Expect there to be tears, expect there to be snot, expect there to be fluids. Let's just call it fluids. To be released, especially over the next 4 days. Piscean energy, we tend to bloat up. We tend to get puffy. There's a lot of inflammation taking place, especially in our digestive system, mostly because the digestive system connects with the Virgo energy that we're currently sitting in. And of course, the inflammation connects to this Piscean energy. It's water energy. We got to puff up. We got to hit that boiling point, that breaking point in order for things to be released. And right now there's a lot of tears being released. Our bladders, our bowels are full, are going through spasms, are having cramps. A lot of that is due to the inflammation, and that needs to be released as well. The heart activations are going to continue. I hope, my goodness, I hope we are done with the heartbreak and we are done with the mourning and the grief. But you know what? Our hearts have to break in order for us to put them back together in a better state. And just keep in mind that the Piscean and Virgo axis that we're on right now is about healing. It's about wholeness. But you have to recognize where it is that you're not healed and not whole in order for the healing and the wholeness to actually take place. So to sit in our pain, to sit in our heartbreak, to sit in our grief, there's going to be a lot of emotions that come up for us that need to be reprocessed, reintegrated, reacknowledged, if you will. And just keep in mind that our emotional state has a direct impact on our physical state. Again, with the cramps in our guts, many people got bubble guts, just awful right now. Bowels being blocked up, especially around a full moon. That's when you can expect the floodgates to open and things to be released. I want you to pay attention to the amount of water that you're bringing in, Piscean being water energy, but mostly because our kidneys need a good flush, need a good clean out. Kidneys, balancing act. Again, as we get towards the equinox, we have to take into consideration and factor in where in our bodies one side is acting stronger or weaker than the other. Our kidneys are responsible for detoxing us and processing our junk, our grossness, our DNA. And right now we're going through a huge DNA purge, release, karmic clean out with this full Piscean moon. If you have female parts, you're likely going to be feeling those cramping in your female parts as well. And, if you are someone that tends to have their cycle aligned with the moon, you will likely be having a very intense one over the course of this weekend. Again, inflammation is probably the key factor that our physical bodies are going to experience over the course of the next week or so. So I want to talk about, how I just talked about the digestive tract and seeing the inflammation in our digestive tract. Well, another good indicator of what's going on on in your digestive tract is what's going on in your mouth. And I know canker sores and like those little water blisters or like biting the inner flesh of your cheek or your tongue or just having a painful mouth. That is kind of the indication of what's going on in your digestive system as well. We want to take into consideration that the very thin mucosa in our physical body is very hypersensitive and very responsive to the energy fluctuation coming in. And just because the Schumann resonance is offline and showing a blackout doesn't mean that there is no energy. It means that there's so much energy that sometimes these measurement tools just go offline because they can't even begin to put the data and the information together in a way that makes sense. So they just get blown offline altogether. We can see the inflammation in our skin as well. And we've been dealing with rashes. We've been dealing with bumpies. Now, these skin bumpies that have popped up over the last couple of days, I suspect will get worse. But again, pay attention to what area of your body you're seeing these skin irritations up in. But like, they're not really skin blisters and they're not like pimples. There's nothing coming out of them. They almost seem like little cysts, if you will. And I wouldn't say that they're itchy or sore, they're just there. And again, that is huge evidence that we are going through a recalibration and a readjustment, which will continue as Mercury continues to be retrograde, taking us all the way into October. Let me tell you, if you haven't listened to the energy forecast for 2022, part 4, where I go over September, October, November, December, please dive in and take a listen. October is going to be an absolute banger of the month, mostly because starting in October, all of these planets begin to come out of their retrograde and go direct. That is when action and energy comes from our inner realm, from our inner journey, and we actually get it to put it out into the world. That's where dramatic changes and shifts take place. That's where chaos ensues, because we have all of this energy that has been directed inwards with a retrograde that we're now able to exert outwards. And that's when we see major changes, major shifts, major timelines. And again, October follows the fall equinox that is going to take place in just a couple of weeks. And so that's when the new timelines, the new changes, the new adjustments, the new recalibration really sets in. And we definitely see what all of this inner work has been kind of building towards. I talked about how psychic abilities will be coming online. I need you to pay attention to your dreams. Many people have been having dreams that feel realer than life itself. And may I just remind you that we are more alive in other realms than we will ever be here in this earthly realm, that our dreams have the ability to take us to different realms, to different planes, and is very cryptic in some of the situations, some of the premonitions that will be happening, not only for the collective, but in our own individual lives as well. And where we are going through this Piscean purge of karma, our dreams are definitely going to be heightened, good, bad, and otherwise, in order for the unconscious self to do its thing and purge these memories, these fears, these doubts, these insecurities on a level that our awakened ego is not able to process. So our dream state is likely going to be super heightened, as if it hasn't been already. Another thing I forgot to mention, taking a look at this week's astrology, I know that we don't have anything going on, but what I would like to say is that we have 2 different moon days, one on Tuesday, one on Thursday, one ushering us into Taurus energy, which is about what we need to root in and ground, emotionally speaking, in order for us to figure out what it is we need to give birth to and create from here. And then on Thursday, we have another moon day, which is actually going to be in Gemini energy. And as you know, Gemini energy is all up in the air right now because Mercury, its ruler, is retrograde. Mars is in Gemini as well. We're in Virgo season that shares that mercurial energy, which is going to be, I'm going to say, a pressurized point as we build towards that last quarter moon in Gemini at that 24 degrees on Saturday. The other interesting thing that I want to bring to your attention is that on Sunday, which is 9/11, we have 11 different aspects taking place, with 9 of them being in the moon in Pisces, and then transitioning into the moon in Aries, which gives us a great clean start. It helps the healing process because it makes us a little bit more inspired and determined and even angered in order to push us through the challenges and the obstacles that have been very painful for us to be able to process. And not only to mention about that particular day having 11 aspects, but there are 4 days this week, besides the 2 moon days, where we have 11 different aspects taking place. And 11, as you know, is a master creator, a master manifestor, a master builder number that we get to choose how we're going to use that for good and for evil. So talking about moving forward, talking about building, talking about manifesting, we are likely to have a lot of pain, a lot of aches creep up, first of all, in our lower back, because our survival is being threatened right now. And that's where the energy of survival sits, is in the base of our butts, our spine, if you will. And we're also going to feel that radiate down into our thighs, down into our legs, to our kneecaps. That's where we store fears, in our kneecaps. Go all the way down to our ankles. Pay attention to whether or not you're twisting your ankle, rolling your ankle, whether or not your ankles feel strong enough to actually support you taking a step forward. And pay attention to the amount of foot pain that you have. Again, our soul chakras are coming online, having a hard time reactivating those disconnected DNA strands. We're having a lot of pain and cramping in our feet because we are essentially having cold feet, because we know we have to walk forward into a new chapter that seems pretty scary right now. Pay attention to the temperature of your feet, likely having cold feet, mostly because this Piscean energy rules over feet, rules over temperature. We do have cold feet with Piscean energy. And a lot of that is, again, because we are in a cycle where things are ending and things aren't yet beginning. I want you to pay attention to your eyes. We are seeing things from a different set of eyes, a different understanding, a different perspective. They may feel itchy. I know I could rub my eyes right back into my skull until they absolutely burst because it feels so amazing. But also it feels like I have, like, I don't know, eye crusties in my eye. Like, you know, when you wake up in the morning and you try to get the sleep out of your eye, well, it feels like I can't find the sleep. It feels like I can't get that out. I know sleep has been a challenge for many people as of late, but it almost feels like the eye gunkies are like a permanent fixture in there. And I feel like that's because there's a part of us that just doesn't want to see life as it is and as it's unfolding, and would prefer to bury our head in the sand like this Piscean energy prefers to do, and run and hide from reality and just live in la la land. And of course, we can't do that. I talked about last week throat activations. Well, this week I feel like the throat activation is going to come in the form of a lump in the throat, like you want to cry, like you want to scream, like you just need to, you know, cough it up, cough it out, get it out. Again, the throat, the mouth, huge indicators on the inflammation taking up presence in our physical bodies where our digestive system is concerned. And just know that by the time I come and talk to you next week and we all get together for our Friday night date next week, we will be seeing that inflammation, you know, definitely calm down, definitely decrease. We will be feeling the energy and the weight move from the heart space and the emotional field up into the head space and the head chakra, because of course that Gemini energy of the last quarter moon is really going to put things in perspective, bring the dualistic and polarized thoughts and ideas a little bit closer together for a different perspective, a different understanding, and a different level of processing. Just keep in mind, again, that Mercury is retrograde, that our egoic intellect is drugged, is asleep at the wheel. And the only medicine for this is to lean all the way into our spiritual practice and to trust our intuition. So guys, I want to thank you so much for sitting with me, for sharing your time, your energy, your space with me. I want to just show as much love and appreciation for each and every single one of you as I possibly can. I'm sending you nothing but love. I don't care where you're at in the world or where you're at in your spiritual journey, your healing journey, where you're at with the emotions that you're sorting through. Please know that you're not alone. If anything that this podcast or that my information, my content was ever supposed to accomplish is just to remind people that you're not alone. It might feel like you're alone because your physical world mirrors that back to you, but on an energetic and spiritual level, please, my friend, understand that you're not alone. I hear you. I see you, I feel you, I know you. And it is for that reason that, you know what, I'm going to continue to get up each and every single day, regardless of the state of my broken heart, and do what I got to do in order to get the information out, to get the message out, in order to just reach that one person that just may need to hear this message, this information, this content at a time that is very pivotal in them deciding whether or not they're going to stay or they're going to go. So I hope all of you choose to stay on this battlefield with me. I send you nothing but love and light, even though those fluffy love and light, I'm trying to not hate on those love and lighters. I do send love and light, but I send it from a very real and grounded human place. We're not living in delusion over here. We're keeping it real. We're keeping it 100%. And I got nothing but real 100% love for each and every single one of you. I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for showing up for me. I want to thank you for showing up for yourself. We got this. I'm sending you nothing but love, and we'll talk to you soon.